All right, we are back with another week two review. Week one in the books. The Thursday night game in the books. Birds start 2-0. Shout out to the Eagles there. We're going to go through here. We're going to give you some fantasy outlooks for every matchup, as well as some bets to look for, and maybe if you agree with us to throw your money on as well. But yeah, excited for week two now into the NFL season. Before we get into these games, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can get all of our fantasy football advice all week long, all season long to win your league. We'll be going live this Sunday on YouTube at 10:15 to answer all of your fantasy football questions, go through last minute injuries, updates, and start sits as well. So hit that subscribe button and interact with us on all social medias as well.
So starting with Packers Falcons.
All right, let's do it.
So first off, I'm just gonna go off rip and say that you should not be starting Kyle Pitts or Drake London under any circumstances at this point. I think Drake London has dynasty value for the long term for sure. Kyle Pitts, I can't say the same, because a big thing is he's going to score his points off touchdowns. He needs to score touchdowns to be a relevant fantasy tight end. And anytime they get in the red zone, they're going to use Bijan Robinson. They're going to use Tyler Algier. And Drake London, he's been successful last year. But again, I was saying it was unsustainable based off the amount of receptions he would get per game and just like the overall amount of times they throw. And it just looks like Arthur Smith doesn't want to throw. So I'm staying away from all receivers there, but I do love both running backs for now. I think Algier will slowly be more and more phased out a little bit, but it also could be like one of those Kamara, Jamal Williams type of tag teams, but better obviously there, but just like the overall like Thunder Lightning combo that we've seen before from other teams.
Yeah, if you're a Tyler Algier owner, you probably feel pretty good right now, because that this is the highest value he's had since Bijan Robinson got drafted. And like just in week one, you thought, well, Tyler Algier is useless now, and he's not. I mean, they run the ball so much that they're going to use both of those backs really efficiently. And yeah, I agree with Kyle Pitts as well, because the contrast to that is a team that passes the ball like way more than running the ball, like the Vikings, where TJ Hawkinson, even though they have Justin Jefferson, even though they have Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson is still getting 2 touchdowns in the week 2 game against the Eagles. So yeah, 100% agree with you there. It's so funny. Kyle Pitts was open so much in that game. He was open. He was burning defensive backs, and yet he's just not going to get the ball. So, I mean, his talent is there, but again, just rough situation.
How are you feeling with Christian Watson right now being out? Or he's questionable, I guess, but just like overall his status for this season.
I just okay, so I put out some trade feelers out there, but like I still want to see him hit the field. I still feel, here's the thing with Christian Watson is like, I don't know if he's going to he's going to command the most targets on that team. I like Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed, but I also think that nobody is as much of like an alpha dog receiver as he is, where he can just beat you with speed. He can go up and get the ball. He has the size. Yeah, he doesn't run the routes as well as some of the other 2 guys on the team, but he is great with yards after the catch. So if you can get him the ball, he can make a play on it, basically. It's just a matter of how many targets he's going to get for me. But I'm going to hold on to him. I'm going to see how he looks when he hits the field and then evaluate from there. I think even if he hits the field and he looks really good, he actually may be a sell high for me.
I will say for the Packers, kind of changing the subject, but for the Packers, a tight end, like if you don't have a tight end that you feel comfortable starting every week, Luke Musgrave is, I think, someone who's going to be potentially could end up being an every week starter, or just a guy at least that you could feel confident getting like 5 to 10 points a game. I liked what I was seeing from them, but again, Green Bay was playing the Bears, so the Bears are just so bad. I feel like at this, like they looked awful.
That is true.
At least from week 1.
We'll move on, but last point on the Packers, Aaron Jones, who looked really good, especially in the passing game last week. He's also injured. Is he expected to play?
No, I think he's out.
So that's tough for them as well. Yeah, we'll have to see what Jordan Love looks like if Christian Watson and Aaron Jones are both out this week.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the Jaden Reed breakout game. The talent's there. He's not quite getting as many targets. They love giving him rushing attempts, I've noticed in the preseason and even in week 1. So I'm waiting for one of those. But moving on to the Bills and the Raiders. How do we think Josh Allen has a bounce back game this week?
He can't look that bad again. Josh Allen, like, I'm not going to be overreacting to Josh Allen. Josh Allen is still a top 3 quarterback in my mind. Yeah, well, you can say top 5. He's absolutely top 5.
Yeah, that's what I think. 100% top 5. I think his rushing's always going to be there, so that definitely raises the floor for Josh Allen in fantasy. But as a NFL quarterback, I'm starting to just get a little antsy if I'm Bills fans there, because it's been consistent. And I honestly don't think he has that good of a game this week again. I think he will do better than he did last week, because I was just next level bad. But I think the Raiders are a tough matchup for him overall, actually. But of course, if you have him, you're starting him. Let me be very clear when I say that. You start him if you have him, but I wouldn't be ready for like a huge bounce back 35-point week.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like they let him fly. He took that huge step forward. He's become one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and they forgot to go back and be like, oh, wait, you need to still limit mistakes, because he just like does his thing out there, and he'll be so fine airing out the ball and throwing an interception.
He reminds me. So the funny thing is, when Carson Wentz was good, when I first watched Josh Allen, I was like, oh, he reminds me so much of Carson Wentz, but in a good way. And now not that extreme, but it's like starting to have that similar thing where like he just does things that you shouldn't do, and he got away with it for a while, but some of them they're starting to get read a little bit now. The things that are more risky. So it's just a weird parallel that I'm seeing.
Yeah, and you can say like Patrick Mahomes is the same type of quarterback. He does crazy stuff. He'll never stay in the pocket and things like that. And it's like he just makes plays, but when they work, they look amazing. And if they don't work, then it looks like you should be playing way more fundamental style of play. But anyways, Josh Allen I think is still going to bounce back. I actually like Gabe Davis in this game too. People have been waiting for Gabe Davis to break out. I don't think he's going to necessarily break out. I think he's always going to be a wide receiver too, but I do think that passing game is going to look a lot better. And I think Gabe Davis is still kind of a guy who can command a lot of targets, especially Stephon Diggs is going to always get those double coverages as well. So.
Yeah, there's not a lot of players that I'm super excited about in this matchup. I think Josh Jacobs is what everyone thought he would be in RB1. So there's Jacoby Myers. He had a good game. He's out though, but he's someone who I was impressed with in week 1. Just for future dynasty there. I think he's someone who I would be. He looks like he's going to be consistent with what he was in New England the last couple of years.
Yeah. How do you feel about James Cook? Because
I was just going to ask you about just like the Bills running back situation in general. I feel like it's so hard to make any decisions based off that game last week. It was just like such an odd game. True. But at the same time, I don't want to. I have 0 shares of that backfield in any of my leagues, and I'm planning on keeping it that way. It's just one of those where there's just nothing to get that excited about. So I'm happier going elsewhere, even though he's getting a safe workload, but I'm not excited about it.
The workload is definitely there. He's definitely the lead back. 16 touches, 12 carries, and 4 receptions last week, but like he didn't do much with it. That's a guy who, again, is probably going to rely on a touchdown to score. So yeah, he's definitely like a flex play, like a mid-level flex play for me, I would say. And of course, Devontae Adams, obviously on the Raiders as well. And that's about it for me in that game.
Yeah, let's go to the Ravens Bengals. Another team that was very scary in a bad way last week.
Both teams kind of look bad, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Baltimore is kind of like getting forgotten about because they ended up getting the win.
And but they play the Texans, so it's like they should have destroyed them.
But the Bengals looked atrocious. That first half, like I'm gonna chalk some of it up to the weather, but Joe Burrow looked like he didn't know where to throw the ball, or like every throw it looked like he would like try to hold on to it on the last second and would just go straight into the ground. I really haven't like that was baffling and one of like I think probably the worst performance you could have seen from Joe Burrow in a week one. And I obviously think he does a little bit better. That actually, no, I'm gonna. No, I think he's gonna do way better. I
He
think this is a
cannot
great
do
matchup.
worse.
I
He
think
cannot do worse.
no, I think he's gonna be a top 5 quarterback this week. The Ravens, I don't trust their defense in general right now. I think he rocks. I think T. Higgins has a big comeback game. I think Jamar Chase has over 100 yards. I think this is their coming out party this week. I think you could tell that he didn't let that affect him. He kind of made jokes about it in the interviews. I think they come out and just roll this week.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, yeah, T. Higgins, do not sit T. Higgins this week.
No.
Like, absolutely not. And of course, Jamar Chase is an automatic star every single week. Yeah, he can't look any worse. And apparently, Joe Burrow kind of always looks bad in week one games over the past few years. So it is what it is. Baltimore is still trying to get their feet under them in that offense, I think. And I am still going to be a little bit of a Lamar Jackson hater. In fantasy football, he's still going to be a great quarterback. That rushing upside is 100% there in fantasy football. But like for that team, like he needs to be able to pass the ball very well if this is the offense they're going to be running with those receivers out there.
I think Zay Flowers, out of those receivers too, I'll say that Zay Flowers is the only one who I feel comfortable starting. But with that being said, I feel comfortable starting Zay Flowers every single week. He's as good as advertised, and from what you hear and what you see on the field.
Clearly, the last game he was the center of that offense. Mark Andrews is back now, so I'm sure Mark Andrews will take a little bit of those touches, but Zay Flowers is the clear wide receiver one there.
And they've been saying that since the start. But I was actually Odell had a better game than I was expecting him to. I was thinking Odell would be pretty unplayable, but if you're in a bad situation, yeah, I still wouldn't. But if you're in a horrible situation, which these injuries this year, it's probably just because I don't remember exactly what happens from year to year as far as injuries, small injuries go. But it feels like there's just been more injuries than ever this year.
Yeah, I feel like the last few years have been bad. Teams have been playing their starters less and less in the preseason, and I don't know. I don't know if that's why or not, but I guess it's just been rough. Okay.
Detroit, Seattle
here. Okay. So by the way, for a bet, really quickly, and slash fantasy, Jahmyr Gibbs.
Oh yeah, I actually missed some of them. I'll circle back to some of my bets
after this. But Jahmyr Gibbs is a play this week. He absolutely has the talent, and they're gonna get him the ball more. I assume they're gonna get him the ball more than they did. David Montgomery did not look bad, but like I think he's going to get most of the rushing touches. Jahmyr Gibbs is still going to be more involved in that passing game as well. Because as a whole, that offense didn't look good last week.
Detroit, yeah, no, they did.
I think his over-under is set at like 26.5 receiving yards, 27.5 receiving yards for Jahmyr Gibbs. So I'm absolutely smashing that over.
Yeah, another thing I saw too through some research is that Seattle is one of the worst defenses against defending running backs on pass plays. And if I'm able to find that out, I'm gonna assume that the Lions figure that out, and that's what Jahmyr Gibbs is brought in to do, is be explosive. These out of the backfield pass catching plays, and he showed he's obviously the most talented back there. If you have Jahmyr Gibbs, he's exactly what you've been hoping he's going to be. He's so good. But again, I'm not saying that I'm right on this or that this will be the case all year, but I said that it's going to take a while for Jahmyr Gibbs to be what you want him to be. And that's not because the talent's not there, that it's going to get used to anything. It's exactly what the Lions do every single year. It's like DeAndre Swift. We saw Thursday night what DeAndre Swift is. He's as good as everyone thought he was skill-wise. He just wasn't used in Detroit. And I think Jahmyr Gibbs is not going to be that underused, but I think it's going to be more 50-50. But I do feel comfortable starting David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously, I probably wouldn't want that on the same team, but if you have one of the two, you're probably starting either of them, no matter who you have, and you feel good about it too. I think the David Montgomery is going to get a lot of touchdowns there.
Yep, I agree. On the Seattle side of things, I don't think, obviously Amon-Ra, but that's about it for the Lions other than that.
Yeah.
For the Seattle side of things, DK.
Goff. I will say Goff though. Actually, if you're streaming quarterbacks, Goff's gonna be a great streamer.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, I said that last week because it felt like that game was going to be so high scoring, and Jared Goff, he did good even though it wasn't that high scoring of a game. But for Seattle, I'm still in on DK Metcalf. Tyler Lockett didn't look as good as I thought he was going to last week. I personally I'm still sitting JSN in Dynasty, and obviously in redraft too. I just think wait on that. Like he will break out eventually at this point this season, but I think it's still too early for him getting worked into that offense. But like maybe that offense isn't as good as we all thought it was. I don't know.
Like, yeah, I didn't watch the full game, but Geno Smith, I feel like there's definitely could be some regression there from last year. Like he played out of his mind last year. Like he was a Pro Bowler. So he obviously wasn't like that for his whole career. He kind of, I feel like we could definitely see regression there, but I also somewhat feel, I think JSN's breakout could be any week. I think that's like, if you start him, it could just be that week. It could be this week. It could be next week. It could be in 5 weeks from now. But like you said, he's going to break out, and I'm in Dynasty or redraft. I'm excited to have him.
Yeah. I mean, I could see a situation where they were just so frustrated with how the offense looked last week. They realized they have to change something, and maybe that's the change. Maybe they work him in more. Because that offense had less than 200 yards of total offense last week. It just did not look good. Like Geno just didn't do anything special. Just not much going there.
Before we go to the next one, I'm going to circle back to two bets from some teams that we had here. First one being Bijan Robinson over 55 rushing yards. I think he's going to get more and more involved, and he's going to break a 55-yarder one of these games. And he's just one of those guys who is so elite that his first touchdown was probably as cool of a touchdown as you can have for your first touchdown. So I think he's getting that 55 rushing yards pretty easily. And yes, I know that was a passing play. Did we talk about, nope, didn't pass that one. All right. Yeah. That was the only one so far. So.
All right, cool. And by the way, for last thing on Seattle, really quick, Kenneth Walker was the clear lead back last week, so he's the play, not Zach Charbonnet. All right, Chargers, Titans.
Start with the Eckler, Joshua Kelly. I feel like
that's huge. Yeah, that's the big one there. Obviously, Austin Eckler is not expected to travel with the team, so Joshua Kelly, who already got 16 touches last week, and was very efficient on the ground, is going to be their lead back this week as well. Yeah, I mean, people picked him up for like almost 100% fab, 95% of our fab in one of our leagues, but maybe that's worth it, because I think that could be a little bit of a split back role where both of them can be fantasy relevant this season, even when Eckler comes back.
I do. I think that they both have, obviously Austin Eckler, when he's healthy and play, he's a top. I think at this point he's a top 5 running back, especially after what I saw week 1. But I think Joshua Kelly definitely has flex value in a lot of games this year. But I'm going to say this week's not one of them. I think he's a low end RB3 this week against Tennessee. Their run defense is crazy. I don't think that I think they gave up like 2 yards a carry last week. And
the Titans are so good at making everybody play to their level, basically.
I think Justin Herbert goes crazy this week, though.
I hope so. I like Justin Herbert.
I think he might be a QB1 this week.
I mean, he did, for fantasy wise, he did great last week too. He's again, that's the guy that like he's going to be able to rack up 300 plus yards a lot of weeks. And just that ability to just throw the ball is going to and in the amount he's going to throw the ball is going to be able to rack up those fantasy points. So there's almost nobody on the Titans that I like. The only I do kind of like Chigo Okonkwo. He ran a lot of routes last week, but he did not get a single target.
He missed. No, he got overthrown on a wide open touchdown. Okay. He was running for like 50 yards, and Ryan Tannehill just sailed it over his head. They might not even had it as a target because it was so far overthrown. But it was
maybe that was the one target. But okay, I didn't pay attention to that game specifically.
I was gonna say Ryan Tannehill is gonna lose his job way faster than I anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, which is rough for that team who just brought in D Hop. But I said D Hop is for me is like a flex play. Like he's nothing more than that for me this whole entire season. Basically, I just don't think that offense is good enough. And obviously, Derrick Henry is still a play there, but I will say Tajay
Tajay
Spears
Spears,
he
he looked
got
better.
more snaps. I think he got a higher percentage of the snaps on the offense last week. So I think probably Derrick Henry still leads in carries, but Tajay Spears is like on his footsteps for that job.
Yeah, I think we were both a little off when I remember when we broke down the draft. I think Duncan might have drafted him, and we're like, "Oh, that was a horrible pick in the first round." Which I don't know if it's warranted a first round
Yeah,
pick, but
still
it's going to be better for you way earlier than I at least thought.
yeah, same. I like Derrick Henry. I know is going to slow down at some point. I just didn't think that it would be this quick. But teams they're ready if they have a running back to move on to. They don't care. They'll be ready to move on in the NFL. So Derrick Henry obviously is still a play all season long, but you could see his carries go down a little bit there.
Yeah, so I think that's all I really have in that game. It's not an exciting one, but I mean, I guess we could talk about the receivers. I think Quentin Johnson, you can't be start. Like I think could end up being a bust still. Keenan Allen, I think you're starting him. Obviously, he's gonna get his. Mike Williams is someone who I have been last year and I still am. I'm out on Mike
Oh, and
Williams.
by the way, D Hop, he didn't practice all week. I don't think.
No, he's questionable.
So yeah, he's listed as questionable right now. Um, we'll see what that means for Treylon Burks, but I don't play Treylon Burks this week.
No. Move on to Bears Tampa, which is a god awful game.
I hope this ends up being like an exciting game just because of how bad both teams are.
I think DJ Moore bounces back
I
in
do
this
too.
one. I
I
think
think
it was just they're playing. He was up against Jair Alexander on almost every single lot. I think like 80% of the snaps he was with Jair Alexander, he's a stud. And I don't think there's anyone on Tampa who's there. It's not that they're not as good, but I just see DJ Moore having a good game. I
yeah,
hope at
he'll get
least,
more
but again,
targets.
it was so reminiscent of past seasons where he has like 0 and then next week he has like 19. And I feel like it's going to be a lot like that too, because Justin Fields did not look great week 1.
Yeah, season by season, DJ Moore is actually very consistent, but game by game, he's very up and down, to be honest with you. So, I mean, I do expect to bounce back. He was playing one of the best against one of the best corners in the league, and I think the Bears hopefully can figure something out there. I think, to be honest with you, I honestly think they need to go back to doing what Justin Fields did last year, and which is running the ball way more than he actually did last week. So, and then you can open up the passing game a little bit and things like that. But with DJ Moore being the clear wide receiver one there, he'll likely get more targets this week as well.
And one question I think was answered last week for Tampa. Actually, I think 2 questions were answered. Mike Evans is still good at football. It's no denying it. He's someone who, if you have him, you feel comfortable as your wide receiver 2. And if it really gets down to it, still not wide receiver 1, but if in a really bad situation, you could probably start him as your wide receiver 1 and feel okay. But I think the other one that's answered there is that Rachaad White is not as good as people think he is or hope he is.
Yeah, and neither is Sean Tucker, really.
Yeah, it's just an ugly backfield that I don't think I honestly am not starting Rachaad White in Dynasty if I don't have to. Or redraft
Yeah.
for that matter, obviously. But
I'm just gonna say this about Baker Mayfield. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback, but this is the best receiving core he's ever had. I mean,
yeah,
he
probably.
could surprise, and I do think Mike Evans may still be traded at some point in the season, so they can get some value back on him. But we'll see. We'll see with Baker Mayfield. That's all I got to say. That's the most non-take ever, but
Yeah.
but it is his best receiving core ever, I think. So
I think he's someone you can look at if you're struggling at the quarterback position.
yeah.
But this next game is the complete opposite of that Bears Buccaneers. I think is one of the most exciting games of the week. Chiefs Jaguars, because Jaguars look nice, and Calvin Ridley, he's a top 15, top 10 wide receiver.
I knew he was going to be good. I didn't know he was going to be that heavily involved that early on in this offense.
And he was burning people. He should have had another touchdown. I think they called him out about. I think he stepped out of bounds at like the 5 or something. But I'm what if I have him in one league? I think he's officially untradeable right now. I think he has wide receiver top 3 to top. I say top 5 wide receiver upside this year.
Okay.
Top 5 wide receiver upside.
I could see him hitting that mark. I don't think he will, but it could happen for sure.
I think there's a chance he finishes higher than AJ Brown. I have them too, so that's why I'm comparing both of them. I think Calvin Ridley can outscore AJ Brown. With that be but I still think AJ Brown's a top 10, top 15 wide receiver.
Okay, I respect it. AJ Brown is still a top 5 dynasty receiver in my book. I don't put Calvin Ridley in there for dynasty yet. At this point.
I'm talking this season right now. Yeah. Dynasty, I'm going to AJ Brown way higher just because in Dynasty, yeah, sorry, I should clarify there. I feel like I go back and forth between, because that's the thing. Dynasty and redraft are so similar because during the season, it's like a redraft. That's your team. You're trying to play there until you know for sure that, okay, I need to change direction. I need to get picks or whatever. But
100%. If the Chiefs lose this game, everyone's going to be so low on the Chiefs and so high on Trevor Lawrence. He's going to be overrated at that point, to be honest with you. Trevor Lawrence, if Trevor Lawrence looks good in this game and the Jaguars win, Trevor Lawrence is going to be overrated. And he is a great quarterback, like he is, but I don't put him in the top 5 category yet. Even so Zay Jones was actually getting a lot of the targets last week, and Christian Kirk was not. It worries me about Christian Kirk. It does, but I do think he's more involved in that offense than it looked like last week.
You froze there, so to be honest, I didn't hear what you said. I don't know if it was me or you, but
I'll say it again anyways. So Christian Kirk was not involved very much at all in that offense, and Zay Jones actually got some targets there last week as well. So Zay Jones for me is a stash. Like, I want him on my team. He's a little bit of a buy right now. Christian Kirk, I'm definitely worried about, but I still think he's more involved in that offense than he was last week.
Yeah, I think just we know the talent's there with him, but my panic meter's definitely starting to go off.
It's starting to, but I don't want to overreact to week 1. I mean, when I wish he still was second on the team in targets, but with Calvin Ridley doing what he did, I hope Calvin Ridley just doesn't completely take away Christian Kirk this season. But I am betting Christian Kirk over 38.5 receiving yards. That's not anything too crazy. Like, that could be a couple of catches. So I like that. Knowing what he did over the past 2 seasons, I think that he hits that mark this week.
Now, Kansas City, I think that this is week 1 for them. We've never seen Patrick Mahomes play without Travis Kelce before. I think the biggest thing you can take away from the last week's game is that they better start piling up some draft picks or start planning for the future, because without Travis Kelce, that offense looks brutal. Kadarius Toney sucks. It is what it is. He's horrible. I think he's unstartable in fantasy. I think probably every pass catcher not named Travis Kelce is unstartable. I guess maybe Jerick McKinnon, but I think
Rashee Rice is a buy for me, even though I wouldn't start him, but he's a buy.
I think he looked the best. He was by far the best last week as far as pass catchers go. But I think Pacheco, I'm not as scared about Pacheco as I think some people are. I think he looked good in week 1. Stats weren't all there, but when he was there, he was he looked like he's explosive. Didn't look like he was bothered by the injury or anything. So I think I'm staying firm on Pacheco and feel good. And I'm a lot of Kansas City. I'm just saying, okay, let's see what happens in week 2. I'm just going to call week 1 a wash.
That offense will look better. Obviously Pacheco definitely got the touches, and he just needed to score a touchdown. But I feel like he got tackled quicker than I thought on some plays last week. I feel like there was a chance for him to score a touchdown at one point. He got tackled on the 1 or 2 yard line. But we'll see with him. We'll see how they utilize that running game.
Let's move on to Colts Texans. I think this is an intriguing one from a fantasy perspective. Michael Pittman shocked me last week. I don't want to have Pittman, but he played really well. He had what do you have, like 11 receptions or something crazy. But what I'm going to say is Nico Collins is the best wide receiver in this matchup here. And Nico Collins is someone who I'm buying as much as I can. He is CJ Stroud's favorite receiver. He's talented. He's been productive. I think he's someone you could feel comfortable starting in your flex position every single week.
Yeah, I like Nico Collins as well. I've been high on him. He showed it last year. We'll just have to see how that offense develops and how CJ Stroud starts to look. I do think that I think Michael Pittman, for me, his value is higher than what it will be this whole season. I'm okay with selling him if I have other needs, but I think maybe a lot of people were a little bit too low on him coming into this season. But
I think I was definitely too low, but I'm still not. I think that was an outlier game.
Yeah, I don't think he looks that good every single week. I don't think that offense looks that good every single week, to be totally honest.
I don't think Anthony Richardson throws that many. I think there's maybe going to be 3 games where he throws that many times in a game.
I was surprised how well he looked in the passing game, because I did not think he looked that good in the preseason game against the Eagles. I think he looked pretty good in the passing game.
He looked okay at best against the Eagles.
Yeah. I will say Dameon Pierce is a play for me this week because of that Colts running defense. I think Dameon Pierce is going to be able to eat in that game as well.
We learned that I don't want anything to do with Indianapolis running backs.
Oh yeah. By the way, Zach Moss should be back this week too, actually. So all the Indianapolis running backs have looked awful. Zach Moss has never been an RB1 before, I don't think.
He was in Buffalo behind was it like CJ Spiller?
The Texans have him now. Here, let me go to their depth chart. I'm blanking here. Devin Singletary.
Oh yeah.
CJ
Spiller throwback. I heard CJ Spiller is trying to come back.
Yeah. Who's taking any running backs right now?
Yeah, I know. Kareem Hunt and Leonard Fournette sitting out there. It's kind of crazy.
So yeah, that's how I have on that game. By the way, Josh Downs is like in redraft. I don't touch him, but he looked good just because I just Twitter highlights out here, was able to beat his cornerback, beat the defensive backs on some routes there. I think he looks good for the future there.
I like Downs.
All right.
San Francisco, LA. I feel like the Puka Nacua game, if he plays, I think people need to pump the brakes there. I completely. He's good. That was an amazing first NFL game, but chill out.
He's Matthew Stafford's favorite target. That we know is clear. But that Rams team is still going to be bad this season. They are. That was a shocking win in week 1. They looked good. But Puka Nacua, we have to remember, he's still a 5th round draft pick. Yeah, he might end up being a great wide receiver in the NFL, but he's a rookie on a bad offense. That doesn't move the needle for me still. I actually sell him in redraft.
Yeah, redraft, I think I'm definitely selling. Dynasty, I'm holding because I think he definitely, he's a good receiver, but people are acting like he's top 20 at this point.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case. In redraft
can't
or
even
Dynasty.
Be close. A rookie who was not majorly on the radar coming into the season cannot have a week 1 performance and jump into a top 20 receiver conversation. It just can't happen.
It's so reactionary. Just give it a couple weeks, see what happens.
And there's a chance that at the end of the season, we are saying he's a top 20 wide receiver, maybe, are more feeling comfortable with that statement. But you can't make that statement now.
No.
If you are, you're just hoping to get lucky on it, basically. Okay. Ayuk went nuclear. I love Ayuk, playing him all season long.
By far the best receiver there. We've been saying it all offseason. Debo is the wide receiver 2 on that offense.
Yeah, 100%. And Puka Nacua, by the way, just going back to Puka Nacua, he is supposed to play, right?
Questionable. It's his oblique. I haven't heard any updates.
Let's see what this says.
I'm guessing it's going to be game
limited in practice. Their receiving core would look so bad without him. So they already barely have anybody. I think they probably want him to play. But yeah, that's about it. Oh my God, I stay away from freaking Cam Akers, dude. I stay away from Cam Akers. And their rookie backup running back looked pretty good. What's his name? Williams, something Williams.
Kerwin.
Kerwin Williams. He looked good. I mean, he's a buy for me potentially. If
I picked him up in a league, but I'm not starting him feeling comfortable at this point. So
yeah, again, that Rams offense is going to look pretty bad. But other than that, obviously it's the obvious ones. Christian McCaffrey, we know. And Brock Purdy looked pretty good too. Actually going to continue to ride with Brock Purdy as like a QB2 or, a streamer for sure. All right.
I feel good there, but now another disgusting game.
Damn. The Giants couldn't score a single point last week against the Cowboys. The Cardinals, I think, did score a single point. They scored 16 points against the Commanders.
They were winning for a while.
Yeah. Josh Dobbs, I guess, is still the quarterback there. Okay, I can be real quick with the Arizona Cardinals. It's James Conner is a play, but honestly, there's some weeks he might look bad just because of how bad that offense is. And that's it. There's nobody else on that offense that I play.
Yeah, and similarly for New York, I think I only feel comfortable playing Saquon Barkley at this point. I mean, of course, if you have Daniel Jones in Dynasty, you're probably starting him in super flex leagues for sure. But that offense looked horrible. So I'm staying with I can't make any decisions off last week. Like last week, they were so bad.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bounce back get right game for them just because the Cardinals are so bad. I think Darren Waller is still a play there too, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be as insane as people are talking people are saying tight end 1 upside. No.
Yeah.
Again, tight ends, some could be good from week to week, but unless you have Travis Kelce, I don't really care.
Jets Cowboys here. All right. Cowboys looked pretty dominant against the Giants last week, and the Jets lost Aaron Rodgers. So 2 completely different feelings there for those 2 teams.
2 elite defenses, though.
That is very true. 2 elite defenses. I wonder what the over-under is set at. I'm going to look that up really quickly. But another takeaway I have from the Jets right now is that Garrett Wilson is still 100% a play. His value does drop a little bit, but I love his talent still.
I think his value in redraft drops more than I think I'm more worried than you are about this year's value with Garrett Wilson. I think dynasty wise, I don't really drop him much, maybe 1 to 2 just based off this year's success. I am definitely frustrated and upset if I own Garrett Wilson this year because his upside was wide receiver 1 upside. It was top 5 wide receiver upside. Now, I think for the season, his ceiling is top 15. I think he still can get 1,000 yards. I think that it's just not going to be anywhere near that level. I think Zach Wilson actually played pretty. He looked horrible, but like he was able to manage the game. And I think in order to be successful for Garrett Wilson,
interception, but yeah,
Garrett Wilson's going to need to make catches like he did in the end zone there, where that's just not something you can expect from him.
That was an interception. That should have been an interception, honestly.
And Dallas is going to be in their face all game. Honestly, if you bench Garrett Wilson this week, this is a hot take, maybe. I don't know. I would not feel you wouldn't be crazy to bench Garrett Wilson this week.
I would never bench Garrett Wilson. I completely disagree with that.
I think they're just.
I don't
be
think.
so
I think you're
overwhelmed
right.
by Dallas, and he's gonna have Trayvon Diggs on him.
But if he finishes as a top 20 wide receiver this week, if like let's say he finishes as
I
the
don't think
20th
he
best wide
does.
receiver this week, you don't think he can finish as the 20th best wide receiver this week? What was he last week?
I think that Dallas defense is that good, and Zach Wilson is just not gonna know what to do. I think
He's really bad at reading defenses, man.
and he's gonna be getting crushed. Like the Giants have a good offense on paper, and they were horrible. The Jets.
All right, so in half PPR, Garrett Wilson finished as the 24th best receiver last week, and PPR he finished as the 23rd. I guess that's probably around where I would put him again this week.
I can't. I don't think so. I think Dallas is way different of a defense.
That you think they're just going to shut him down completely. Zach Wilson's going to look awful.
I don't think they're going to. I think he's going to be open. I think he'll be open someplace for sure. I just think Zach Wilson, after the first drive, he's going to start seeing ghosts. He's not going to. He's just going to be so out of it. And that overall, that defense is good no matter who's at quarterback. They made Daniel Jones look like Zach Wilson. So who are they going to make Zach Wilson look like?
All right. I don't sit Garrett Wilson until he. And I know this is probably the one matchup that you have reason to think maybe sit him. I can't. His talent, he's just too talented. His talent level is a top 5 to top 10, honestly top 5, but let's just say top 5 to top 10 receiver in the NFL. Just his talent level alone, not fantasy wise or what he's stat wise is going to look like this season. I can't sit somebody who's that talented.
I have him for the rest of this season, unless they go out and trade for Kirk Cousins or something like that. I have, as if they keep this same quarterback situation, I have him at a wide receiver 2 for the rest of the year. Dynasty, yes, still top 10 wide receiver, but for this current year, I think he's wide receiver 2 to probably mid up. He could go anywhere from high tier wide receiver 2 to low tier wide receiver 2. I think is like a comfortable range. He's safe.
I think that's
but he has his upside is nowhere even close to what it was before.
In redraft, yeah, it sucks. That situation sucks. Well, Zach Wilson this is probably the worst possible scenario for Zach Wilson, who was hopefully going to continue to develop and learn under Aaron Rodgers, and now he's not going to. You want to take a guess at what the over under is set at? It's like there's one other game that has the same over under, but there's maybe 2 other games that have the same over under.
But so like 34.5.
It's not that low, but it's 38.5.
Yeah, it's right around. I knew it.
I don't know if I can bet the under just because it's so low, but that sounds about right.
Now, here's the interesting thing for fantasy is Dallas, because their defense scored a lot of points and the offense wasn't like Tony Pollard did well. But outside of that, like they scored so many points, but Dak had a bad fantasy game.
This Jets defense is almost
the receivers had a bad. Oh, I agree. I don't like starting Dallas players this week. I don't. And Brandon Cooks is hurt already. CD, you're starting CD. Tony Pollard again. Like it's like you know what you're doing with these guys. If you have other options besides Dak Prescott, do that like for sure. But you have to start CD. You have to start Tony Pollard.
And that's it. Yeah.
And that's it there on that offense. Now, here's something else in the Jets. And I feel like I've made comments on this before. Dalvin Cook looks like he took a step back, and Breece Hall looks like he's back like he never left. I think we're going to slowly and surely see Breece Hall get more carries. They're not going to want to run him into the ground, but Dalvin Cook, I don't think like people were drafting Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall in around the same range in redraft leagues, which was just crazy to me. Like Dalvin Cook seems like the clear RB2 there. And I think it's you could feel safe saying that that's going to be the case for the rest of this year. He still has value. He's still a startable player week to week, but Breece Hall is definitely the running back you want there current, like now and through the rest of the year.
I think when we get to the middle point of the season or in the end point of the season, Dalvin Cook might be unplayable. But for now, he is still playable because he is leading in touches, or at least he was in week 1. But Breece Hall was way more efficient.
He looks so good. Cook. It is crazy. Like I feel like he might have been one of the most slept on players for this season. And even Dynasty, I feel like people dropped him too low in their rankings after that injury. He looks good.
Yeah, 100%. All right.
Now, before we go on, because it's on my mind because a team in our league has both Brees Hall and the player I want to bring up is a player who played Thursday is DeAndre Swift. Do we think that what's his value right now? Because I think it's interesting. I still don't fully trust him to. I think he's like in your head, you're like he has to be the workhorse guy going forward. I also think that's a situation where Minnesota's game plan was to just say you're not going to pass on us, you're not going to beat us deep, and we're going to leave the middle of the field wide open, and the Eagles finally put 2 and 2 together and started feeding him. I don't think he has 170 yards. I don't think he's an RB1. I think he's a pretty safe low end RB2 to potentially a high end RB2. I feel good with DeAndre Swift, but I think if you can get rid of a running back and you have DeAndre Swift, I think right now is a great time to sell because people
absolutely.
are hopping on that bandwagon.
Yeah, I agree. First of all, great job by like the Eagles for actually being able to change their game plan and make adjustments in that game and realize, oh, we can just run the ball down their throat. Their game plan, it looks different every single week. Because they're able to run the ball so well and they're able to pass the ball so well, and because Jalen Hurts is going to take, and Jalen Hurts did take away rushing touchdowns from DeAndre Swift. Imagine if I think DeAndre Swift, there was like a goal line run that he didn't get, and then they were like, all right, well, now of course we're going to QB sneak it now. So like that takes away a little bit.
Anytime they're in the 1 yard line, that's gonna be the tush push.
It's unstoppable.
It's coming and you can't stop it.
It's absurd.
But no other team can do it. I've never seen another team do it yet. So
the Chiefs tried to do it. Other teams.
The Colts tried to do it.
Yeah,
it didn't work.
Yeah. So DeAndre Swift is not that could be his best game all season, or he'll have a couple games that look similar here and there. But I also think that I wouldn't be surprised if like there's a random week where it's Kenny Gainwell again gets the most touches on the team. So
he
it's
looks
just
like the most talented
backfield.
Swift by far, like I'll say that he looks unreal. Like the cuts he was making, there's no time where I watched Miles Sanders and I had that like feeling of watching a running back on the Eagles. Like that felt like shady, like with more power, but obviously not quite as much agility. But that's what it reminded me of, was watching shady.
For now, DeAndre Swift, I think DeAndre Swift proved that he needs to be the lead back there. I just don't think that I trust the Eagles running back situation just because of how they utilize them. But if Kenneth Gainwell is out again next week, DeAndre Swift is a surefire play. But
I was like, going back to this is an interesting matchup. Commanders Broncos, interesting situations. Two good
defenses, and two offenses that are like very sketchy.
I think the only player I feel comfortable starting on Washington, on the whole team this week is Dotson. And he's also someone who I like his over under for receiving yards set at 41.5. I like Dotson more than McLaurin now. McLaurin is still coming off that injury a little bit. He's going to have Surtain on him probably, I would think, for a lot of it. So I think this is a Dotson game. And also Sam Howell, in the games that he's played so far, it looks like Dotson's his guy. So I like Dotson. I think Brian Robinson is someone I'm trying. I'm not as confident as some people are on him. I think definitely didn't see him catching a receiving touchdown last week, but he still scares me. Antonio Gibson scares me for sure. And then
I thought I was like, that's got to be Gibson, right? When Brian Robinson catches that touchdown. Nope. Apparently Brian Robinson is also going to be receiving the ball as well.
Denver's entire receiving room scares me. Judy, obviously, I think the skill level's there. The injury is something to always keep an eye on. When he plays, he's going to be good. But like Mims, from a dynasty standpoint, even I'm scared if I'm a Mims owner. He was invisible. I didn't even realize he played.
I gave out some bad advice last week because I said Mims could be a low end flex, and he was not much at all.
I mean, that's good advice at that point. I thought I was talking to people telling him to draft Mims even for the full season once Jerry Jeudy comes back. But in redraft, he's droppable for sure at this point. And in dynasty, obviously you're holding on to him, but I think his value dropped significantly after week 1. And that's not to say, like, I think week 1 holds a lot of value for rookies because that's kind of like the base. Like you see, like Puka Nacua, he's like now all of a sudden a top 20 running back to some, or wide receiver to some people, because he was his first game was good. And Mims, you're going to see his value drop significantly. Not that it should, but that's where his value will be, like if you're looking for trades in the next couple weeks. But Javonte Williams looked good.
Javonte Williams, I didn't expect him to look that good out of the gate, out of his injury as well. So, and I think he's going to be used more and more as the season goes along. If you need to pick up a tight end, Adam Troutman actually led the team, or I think he was tied in targets / receptions last week. Greg Dulcich is obviously out now with his injury. So if you need to pick up a tight end, he's not a bad option.
I was going to say something about the Broncos, completely blanked on it as soon as I started saying it. Anyway,
country. Let's ride.
Russell Wilson, he looks bad still. If I'm a Russell Wilson dynasty owner, I might be trying to get rid of him while people still look at him as Russell Wilson, because he looks so bad. I saw who was it? Antonio Brown was like he was like saying, he was like, man, the Broncos, they need to figure something out at quarterback. He's a bum, like, which obviously I'm not going to take it. Like Antonio Brown knows ball. Antonio Brown knows ball.
He does know ball if he's not just going absolute crazy. You know what time it is? It's Stiddy strikes time, man. Put Jarrett Stidham in there. No, they're gonna have to ride with Russell for a large part of this season. But that offense, it just like it's still bad. It's still bad. Sam Howell was the 12th best quarterback last week. Rushing upside, scored a rushing touchdown. Honestly, didn't look great. He looked okay. So this is going to be a major test for him. Major test against a good defense this week for him. All right. Last game for Sunday, New England and Miami. Dude,
Miami looked crazy.
If you had Tyreek Hill, if you had Tua, you very likely, if you lost with either of those guys, that's pretty sad, to be honest with you. But
yeah, they can make up half your scoring.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah,
I think Waddle's gonna have the game this week. I think he's gonna be the guy. I have Waddle over 61.5 receiving yards. I think Tyreek Hill is going to be double teamed a lot, but at the same time, I still feel comfortable taking Tyreek Hill over as well, which is, I think, set at like 80 something. But I'm going to take Waddle there. Waddle didn't have as great of a game last week, but he's obviously, the talent's there. The offense is explosive. That I think receiver wise, you can't really go wrong over there. And Tua, he's been impressing me more and more.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to doubt Tua, but you can after that game. He looked really good. And Devon Achane was a full participant, so he's back, right? So he didn't play. He hasn't played yet.
He didn't play?
I don't think so.
Oh, I thought I heard him play, saw something about him. Could be wrong. But
but he should be back this week, and I'm very curious to see how he gets worked into that offense. I don't play him yet, but it is possible that he takes over as the lead back at some point on that offense.
New England was an interesting one. Their defense, I think their defense is under that. Their people aren't talking about how good their defense was last week. A lot of people are saying like that the Eagles didn't that their offense was off, but I want to give a lot of credit to that New England defense. The New England defense looks great. So I do think that you're not gonna see the same amount of explosive plays out of Miami. But someone who didn't have the best week ever last week, who I think I still am so high on, is Ramondre Stevenson for New England. Mac Jones last week, I think, had one of his better weeks. I still don't like Mac Jones.
I was surprised how good Mac Jones looked, to be totally honest.
Juju Smith-Schuster, though, he's borderline droppable for redraft, and I maybe testing the waters to see if you can get something, or wait until he has one good week. But
He
he
wasn't
does
even
not
on
look
the
good.
field for their last drive that they were trying to have a game-winning drive to win the game. He wasn't
Dude's
even on the
trash.
field. They don't even trust him. But the thing is, they paid him a lot of money, so they can't just cut him. They're
They
gonna have to do
paid
something.
they paid the same amount that they for him as they did for or that Jacoby Myers got. So it's like I would much rather have Jacoby
Yeah,
Myers over
they
Juju
couldn't they didn't
Smith-Schuster.
replace they refused to pay Jacoby Myers. Instead, they got Juju Smith-Schuster. And I actually think now Demario Douglas is actually ahead of probably not maybe not officially on at least I'm looking at ESPN right now. Demario Douglas is ahead of Juju Smith-Schuster on the depth chart there. And I think Demario Douglas is a low-key buy right now. He's a rookie who he looked pretty good last week, got some opportunities, so I like him. Juju, yeah, I don't play Juju at all.
No. All right, let's go to Monday night. Saints Panthers. What I will say is Jamal Williams did not have a great game last week.
Oh, we have two Monday night games this week.
Yep.
Let's go.
But I think he's a huge play this week. I think he's going to get a ton of touches. I think he's getting a touchdown. I think could have 2 touchdowns. I think Jamal Williams is a start as long as Kamara's out for the next couple games. Tennessee's defense is, I believe that's who they played last week. Right. Yeah. Tennessee's front
like
seven
16 to 15.
Yeah, Tennessee has a great run defense. Panthers do not have that good of a run defense. I see him getting the carries, especially while what's his name is still injured. Kendre Miller's still not. I think he's gonna play this week, but he's not gonna see the same workload as we were hoping to see later in the season. So Jamal Williams is a go. Miles Sanders, how do you feel about Miles Sanders?
I think he's a hold for me right now. He was involved in the passing game as a little bit, as like they kind of mentioned that they wanted to use him more as a receiving back. He wasn't used as much with the Eagles. So I still think he has that upside. I also just think like that offense is still like very much raw, and it's gonna be a shaky offense probably for much of the season. So I like him as a mid to low end RB2, probably Miles Sanders.
Yeah, I think I have him more in the 3 range. Hayden Hurst looked good last week as far as streaming tight ends.
Touchdown, yeah.
And then he chucked Bryce Young's first touchdown into the stands.
I saw that.
But they got it back. They got it back. Yeah. They said.
You know who I love in this game? Who I loved all really last year and this offseason? I actually said Jordan didn't put this in because he just put it in your bets last week, but Rashid Shaheed. I had him over 38.5 receiving yards or whatever it was. I mean, he's kind of a boomer bust guy, but oh my God, did you see the audio of them? They were mic'd up and Derek Carr was like, Rashid, I'm going to need you to run. You need to get open. Just go run a go route. Go run a go route.
The best part of that whole audio, though, is just Jameis Winston just going, yeah.
Because Jameis Winston, dude, that's his whole dude. If he could play quarterback, he would want every single play to be a go route. He's like, let me just air this thing out.
I remember when you texted saying Rashid Shaheed. When you said that, I was like, man, I don't really like. That's a real random one. I don't know much about him, but I was like, man, you were right on that one.
Yeah, Rashid Shaheed, I like him. He is like. That's his specialty. Just go run a go route. But to be honest with you, he gets it. He gets him probably like a 30-yard reception like most games. So even though he kind of on paper is a boomer bust guy, he kind of gets the points in fantasy. So yeah, I like him a lot, especially for future. I like him for the future as well. And they used him in the rushing game a little bit here. He got two carries. So yeah, versatile guy. Chris Olave was another big play last week.
He's what we thought.
Michael Thomas actually looked good last week.
Yeah, I just don't trust Michael Thomas at all at this point at his age, and it's just like I don't even know. You probably should. That's just like a guy who I no matter what, he could have 200 yards next week, and I'll still be like I don't want him.
Yeah,
which is probably not the best fantasy mindset, but that's just me. My last bet though is coming up in the next game here, the Browns Steelers. And it's again, I said it last week on Jordan's channel. So for y'all listening, if when you hear us say Jordan's channel, it's called It's the Final Round. He gives advice for prop bets, really, really good stuff. He uses analytics to make his picks before the lines come out. And we're on there sometimes, so go check it out. And I have Nick Chubb again hitting the over in rushing yards, 79.5. He's one of the best running backs in the league. The Steelers' run defense is not good. They should be up in this game. The Steelers looked horrible against San Francisco. Cleveland looked great against Cincinnati. Cleveland's defense looks great. I just see Nick Chubb getting a lot of carries, and he could easily have over 150 yards this week. So I think I'm hammering the Nick Chubb over 79.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, at this point, like I kind of just expect Nick Chubb. Like there will be weeks he doesn't get 100 yards, but I'm expecting him to get 100 yards every single week. And I'm betting on it every single week until he says otherwise. Just because this is a rivalry matchup and there's so much history between these two teams and they know each other so well, I feel like it could be a close game. But yeah, and then Browns should absolutely still be running the ball more than passing the ball. That's their cup of tea.
I think Najee Harris has a bit of a bounce back game. I think he's a situation where potentially after this week, I think he will have a good week. I might try to trade him because he's someone I think is going to continue to lose carries in that role over there. So
yeah, they just didn't run the ball a lot because they were down so badly in this last game. Like he just didn't get the opportunities. He was efficient in like the 4 touches that he got all game long. But I like Najee Harris still. And yeah, I absolutely expect him to have a bounce back week because I don't expect them to look as awful as they did last week. And they're going to have to run the ball more. So
how do we think about Pickens or even Allen Robinson or any of these guys now that Deontay Johnson's out for quite a few weeks?
I mean, Allen Robinson could be, pick him up and have him on your bench. George Pickens is obviously the go-to guy there.
Do you think he's going to get an uptick in targets now that he's out? Because I don't know. Because I feel like Pickens doesn't really play he doesn't play the receiver role the same as Deontay does. So I don't know how much of an increase he's going to see. I'm still high on Pickens. I had him as one of my most underrated players going into the season, but I don't think that the Deontay injury helps him as much as some other wide receiver injuries. Or I think it helps other people in that offense more than it helps Pickens.
Yeah, I could see it helping Pat Freiermuth out a little bit, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know. Allen Robinson just isn't it for me anymore.
Yeah, I mean, he's old, obviously, but he just last week he had an impressive week, a shocking week, honestly.
5 receptions, 64. Actually, he led the he did not, but he had 5 receptions. They spread the ball around a lot. Not much came of it as far as touchdowns, but they spread the ball around a lot. Pat Freiermuth only had 1 reception, but it was a touchdown, so it worked out for him. I could see him getting targeted a little bit more this week, Pat Freiermuth.
For sure. But yeah, Deshaun Watson's the only other one. He was not impressive. He made a couple throws, but he's also had some really bad under throws where he just didn't get the ball there. But again, the weather was horrible last week in that game. But he's a guy who I'm just waiting and seeing, but I don't think he's an elite or even top 10 quarterback at this point.
Yeah, I think he looked far from what he looked when he was with the Texans, and maybe slightly better than some of those games last year.
Yeah, he's better than last year, but he's not Texans Deshaun Watson
pre-suspension. And honestly, he never will be, and I'm kind of glad about it. But we don't need to get into
that. But that's all. Those are the games. It feels like there's a lot. I guess there's no buys yet, but it feels like there's a lot of games there.
That took a while to go through, though. But appreciate everybody watching. Again, just saying it again, we will be live on Sunday morning with all of your fantasy football questions. You can throw them in the chat, start sits, everything like that. So hit subscribe and feel free to interact with us on other social medias as well. Until then, Happy football season, week 2. We'll catch you later. Peace out.